Welcome to the Manufacturing Matters podcast with the Council of Industry. Join us as we bring you inspiring stories, interviews, and insights from across the Hudson Valley that will revolutionize the way you think about manufacturing. This podcast is proudly sponsored by PKF O'Connor Davies, a leading accounting and advisory firm dedicated to helping businesses thrive in the manufacturing sector. With their industry knowledge and strategic guidance, PKF O'Connor Davies ensures that manufacturers have the financial insights and support they need to achieve success.
Tom Fassell, science and engineering teacher at Marlboro High School. Welcome to the Council of Industry podcast.
It's great to be here. Thank you for your time.
So you have built a really impressive program there. I'm not that familiar with it, but just seeing some of the social media and seeing some photos and talking to some other folks, I'm really impressed. Tell us about the program.
So the program started back in 2010 with only one section. I currently now have three sections of engineering robotics. I have two sections of like a level 1 class and then one section of a level 2. But essentially the class is a science elective. It's kept pretty simple in terms of the ability for the kids to process and understand. And then what I mean by that is simply we don't lecture so much. They learn by doing.
Awesome.
It's a hands-on class. They take what they learn, and I want them to understand and appreciate failure. They want to fail forward. They want to learn about why that didn't work, manipulate the variables again, and come to a better outcome. So no matter what topic or project or assignment that I give them, there's not a lot of instruction because they have to play with the variables to come to the outcome that they're trying to achieve. So I give them an A, I give them a Z, and I don't give them the path between A and Z, and it's up
Okay.
to them to come up with their own conclusion. And I tell them, for the most part, sometimes you guys come up with a better idea than I could think of. So I'd
Yeah.
prefer not to give you a roadmap. I would prefer you to come from your perspective and your understanding, whether it's a lot or not a lot, and then from there come to a conclusion. And that might take a week, it might take more than that, but that's why it's great not having a regent science class for this
Right.
title. We have time, and I've derived this entire class from the professionals from IBM and now on Semiconductor. We had some parents in the district that were willing to help me, and we kind of started back in 2010 with that process. And I kind of talked to them. I go, here are some of the things I'd like to go about within my class, and they gave me some feedback because it's important to understand from a professional perspective as I'm teaching these
Sure.
young students when they come and see when they come for employment.
Right.
What are you guys
What do
looking
you
for?
actually do, right? Actually, what do you do and how do you do it? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good. So are there prerequisites? I mean, do they need to have a certain math proficiency? Is this an upper level class for juniors and seniors? Or how does that work?
So right now, my level 1 class, the only prerequisite is that you can't be a freshman. You can be a
Okay.
sophomore through senior. And what I love is that I accept everyone. So there's not a standard. It's more like a melding pot of a lot of
Oh,
different
fun.
kids in one class. So I have kids that are going to be professional engineers at some point. I have some kids that after high school they just want to get a job and be done with education in general. So there's a whole melting pot of different people all working together within one class, and I really take pride in that because everyone is challenged, and everyone is the curriculum can be personalized to each group and each person within the group if I need to. And if they need more time, I can give another group another assignment to challenge them more so the other group can get caught up from whatever they need help with. So it's really very flexible, and I like to keep it that way to help every child in class.
So how many of those that do that level one go on to your level two? And kind of what's the difference between the two?
So I right now have 18 students in my level 2 class, and I usually have about 40. So it's almost like a 45% retention ratio between 1 and 2. The one thing that I look for is when they're moving to level 2 is, are they excited to work with their hands? Are they excited about the topics at hand? Do they want to go further. So my level 1 class is very strict. We start off with statics, we then move on to mechanics, and then we move into computer programming and robotics, and then we move into electronics and soldering and how like all the PCB board works, and then we move eventually into RC airplanes at the end of the year, because I do believe that the RC airplane concept is very, one, unique, and two, it actually covers everything we did throughout the entire year, because there is some statics. It was a funny example. This last year, I had one of my students, their one group, they made a really great RC airplane. We were flying it up on top of the hill behind Marlboro High School, and the wings literally went from normal position to up like this, and it just started to spiral down. So then we talked about forces being applied with a gust of wind. So it's all a learning process, and the model of the planes that we use are very resilient, where we can just add more packing tape and hot glue and throw it back up in the air. It's very forgiving, which I
Okay.
appreciate. So it's a great point of conclusion. So those students from level 1, when they move to level 2, we start the year off with the airplanes because they ended off with airplanes. And then we do more advanced aeronautical engineering where they take, like, let's say, broken airplanes. Like I have a couple
Mm,
ones behind me that are
right.
currently broken. And we talk about, well, what is the good and bad design features of this and how would we improve on it. So it's not just making one from like a kit, it's now like, can we modify this to make it fly better, and what is the good and bad and how do we kind of go about making it better. And we do that until it's not great outside, and then from there we move into individual projects based on what their focus is. So then I say, okay, so the rest of level 2, after about December-ish, I say, where do you want to go in your life? Where where is your focus? And we kind of I center curriculum around their focus. So I have a lot of ability to kind of personalize like a capstone class at that point.
Hmm. That's really interesting. So, and how many of your kids have gone on to, I mean, it's been 13, this is year 13. So that's how many have gone on to engineering school and become professional engineers? Do you, I mean,
Right.
can you track that? I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
easy,
I
easy
keep
to ask,
yeah,
not easy to do.
it's hard to keep track of every student, but
Sure.
I do follow up with social media with a bunch of them that I have been able to connect with, and a lot of them, especially for my first year class, they're all like 28 and old people now.
Right.
so
Real
so like,
professionals.
yeah, I know. So I kind of follow up with the people that I've been able to keep in touch with, and I ask them how they're doing and what's going on and what they've learned from the program, if they can remember some certain things. So I do have some like testimonials that I was able to do. And even most recently, I have two students from 2 years ago. They're currently working at Sono-Tek as
Awesome.
right from high school. They just said, education is no longer our focus. We just want to start working. We love this hands-on technology aspect, and I was able to, so it's not even just a 4-year degree. And
Right.
I'm also in contact with Dan Barbuto from Dutchess Community College with their electrical technician program, and I have sent people there his way too. So I have people in all different gambits that go in different directions depending on their focus and
Okay,
what their future is.
that's great. Let's talk a little bit about those relationships, and let's start with Sono-Tek. Obviously one of our members, great company, right down the road from you guys, right in Milton. Yeah, how did that relationship kick off? And it seems like it's gone from a tour to a real kind of a long-term integrated relationship with the program.
No, it's been great. It started off with me being in touch with several people, but it ended up being with Rob Engel specifically. So Rob came to speak with me about the opportunity, and then him and I have a great relationship where we contact each other if I need something or if he needs any referrals. So like a former student of mine who is applying for a job now, he'd ask me for, what do you think of this student kind of idea? So we'd have a conversation about that, or I would actively saying students in my class that are looking either for like an internship and or professional employment, I would help them with a resume. I would help them and build to the point with what Sono-Tek is expecting them. So I'm trying to make sure there is a transition. There
Right.
needs to be a transition between high school and a professional and or a college experience, and it's part of my duty as a teacher to ensure that they are ready for the next chapter of their lives, and that's part of what we do in class, because they have to understand is from the beginnings, is because, and I say to them, when you have your first job, your boss is not going to hold your hand, tell you every step that you're expected to do. You're going to have to work your way through that. So that's like one thing that we foster from day one in my class is autonomy within my classroom, because I don't mind helping. However, when you move past these walls of Marlboro High School, there needs to be autonomy. You have to be able to think on your feet and be able to understand from your mistakes and then move forward from there.
Yeah, it's funny. We've heard this expression a little bit in across some different school districts, and it's that kind of being a self advocate or being able to advocate for yourself, and also recognizing your responsibilities in a position or in the community. So I think that's really great, and one more kind of piece of that is just the exposure that the kids are getting to that job. I mean, Sono-Tek has a range of positions. They do electronics, they do machining, they do so it's in many ways a great place for you to take your kids because they can see the different opportunities in the sector. One of our challenges is just that is just people are kind of just particularly young people are just ignorant of what a factory is or what a manufacturing facility is. So it's great that you have that relationship.
They tell great stories there. That's really what I love the most,
Also true, yeah.
is that it's all about, within my teaching profession, it's all about storytelling. So they kind of, it sets the framework of what's going on and how is it being done. So when Rob would tell a story with things that he could say about this random company coming in, not knowing what they need, and him and his team being able to fabricate from not no experience, but from like
Right.
not knowing what their company is doing, to coming up with a solution for them every time. With, it's quite remarkable. They're from different gambits of different jobs. They do an amazing job there, and I feel very comfortable with my students going there. So I'm an advocate of Sono-Tek. I'm a big fan of Sono-Tek.
Terrific. Well, and you did mention too, you had some families in the district that helped you kick off the program from IBM,
Yes,
and now on Semi, I'm sure it was Global Foundries, or could have been even IBM back in 1919
it was still
2020.
IBM.
Yeah,
It was
right.
still
So
IBM. Yeah.
yeah, so that fab has changed through the years, but I mean that feedback loop is really important, and I think a lot of times industry folks don't recognize that there are teachers like yourself that are really enthusiastic, that want to connect, that want to create that loop and give that circle, so to speak, of employment and education and what everybody needs for a successful workforce. And kind of along those lines, you mentioned Dutchess Community College and the ELT program. Like, you talk a little bit about your connection there and that kind of feeding kids into that program.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact year I was first introduced with Dan, but I went to a conference that he held at Dutchess Community College, and then after that, I was inspired knowing that this is a great opportunity for students to move on into the fields of what I'm doing in my class, so
Right.
they can see it's tangible to them. It's from my class. You can do the soldering and the PCB board work and the electrical work that we do in class, and then you can apply that to a profession if you so choose so. And I've said it to many students. I said, Professor Barbuto is someone who cares. He is someone who wants everyone to
That's
be
so true.
successful in his program. And unfortunately, at times that's not always the case. And having someone to be an advocate for you on the next level, another person that I would feel extremely comfortable my students going to.
Yeah, it's a really exciting program, and I'm sure you're aware they are opening up their mechatronics lab in Fishkill. It's something we're excited about. You mentioned some of the names. IBM, onsemi were very instrumental in giving them the feedback for that lab, and that's going to be, in our opinion, a bit of a game changer for the region, in that it's going to allow people to upgrade their skills, but also really a great pipeline for and resource for folks like literally the kids that you're talking about that love to do this stuff. It's going to be one heck of a playground for them to go in there and play with. So hopefully it'll encourage more people to get into the field.
We've been going on field trips to see Professor Barbuto to Dutchess Community College for, I'd say, at least 5 years now. And this year we're actually going to Fishkill to check
Oh,
out
great.
facility.
Awesome.
And we're
That
looking
is really
forward to
good to
that.
hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, mentioned there's Duchess. Do you have any relationship with SUNY New Paltz for and the programs there, or is that something that maybe it's in the future?
Possibly in the future. We've had them come once. We've had a professor come once before COVID, and then connections might have changed, or I'm not really sure. So yeah, I love more connections. I love facilitating and making sure what we're doing in class is preparing everyone for every aspect. So yeah, I would love more of that as well.
So since 2010, when you kicked it off, what have the numbers looked like? Have you seen greater interest? Is there a kind of word of mouth with the kids? Are they getting a little bit more awareness of, your relationship with Sono-Tek and DCC and all those other things? Is it building some momentum?
It has. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. We have now three sections, and I have over 40 students in my level one class and 18 students in my level two class, and that's a lot for a small school district. So
Sure.
it's working out, and we're just continuing to facilitate. And I tell my students, like, you're not going to have any quizzes, you're not going to have any tests. There's no homework. It's all work that you do in class. So those accelerated kids don't feel there's an extra burden on their schedule,
That's
and
great.
and the other students, they're still challenged to their expecting in class, so it's not another burden on them as well. So it makes it more enjoyable, so there's not one more thing they have to do when they leave the classroom.
And that's critical for those accelerated kids, and kind of like begs this question, or like prompts this question in my mind. This is not, you said earlier, this is an elective, and this is not, engineering is not part of the standard New York State science curriculum. So how do you fit that into your world? I mean, there is not a lot of science electives, to be honest with you. From my understanding, it's a fairly rare thing.
So I am a member of the content advisory panel of New York State. And technically, with the new teaching standards, there's a lot more engineering principles that are built into science curriculum. So technically, all science teachers should be working on the design and iteration process. So it's actually a great kind of pushing off point for my even me teaching earth science, because as we move away more from the standard Regents curriculum and we start moving on to the new standards, the new standards are built on what I'm teaching in my engineering class.
Yeah, do you talk a little bit more about that? Because I mean, I know there's a lot of pushback against some of the new teaching standards, particularly in science, in the elementary school level. I think that there's some of that. I don't know if you have any, input or thoughts on that, but how is that going to play out over the next few years? When did those become fully effective?
So it's kind of rolling out by subject matter. So the elementary standards have already been rolled out and expected to be implemented, where the high school standards are, depending on the topic, it's the next couple of years. So earth science would be next year, 2025, for earth science specifically, and other ones are later past that. So it's still of this like transition period between what we've been doing for 15 years and
Right.
what they expect us moving forward. But I love not teaching to the test, so I look forward to it. I look forward to more hands-on and make science live for people, as opposed to making sure their end result is a certain thing for their Regents exam. So it's about energizing students within the sciences rather than just a literacy test, essentially.
Right. What does that look like in earth science? I'm actually, obviously maybe a little off topic, but earth science is not that off topic for our world for sure,
Yeah,
particularly people dealing with renewable energy and all types of things. What does that look like for you in earth science? How do you change that?
that is what I'm currently working on, to basically take my engineering class as the standard, and then even like as myself making, now how do I transition my curriculum within engineering and robotics, and then how do I turn that into earth science? And I'm in the process of trying to go unit by unit to make it more hands-on, make it more interactive, make it more covering the topics that New York State asks us to, while still making sure everything is met. So it's always a work in progress. When I first taught my engineering class, my 13th year of teaching it, I'm better than my first year of teaching it. So
Sure.
it's the iteration process that I teach my kids as well. Is that it's okay to not be perfect. we'll just continue to tweak it and refine it. And I say you got to just be 1% better every day. And then within a year, you'll be 365% better. Right.
That's
So,
that is continuous improvement. We love that model.
yeah,
So if they and just to harken back on that a little bit, is it more project-based learning? Is that one of the ways to describe it? Is that it just a component?
it's a component. There's not just one thing to do, but there's multiple. And the New York State does not tell you what to do. They just kind of say, here are the parameters, and it's up to the district, it's up to the professional to decide what's best for their kids in their classroom. So that's the one
Okay.
thing that New York State does is they don't tell you what to do. They just tell you that, here's the framework that we would like.
And how's that playing out within your district? Because that's going to be different everywhere. Some of that might be top down, some of it might be, teacher driven. How's it playing out in Marlboro?
It'll be teacher driven, and it'll be like science department specific for us specifically, and earth science department specifically for us as well. So
Okay.
we're currently in the process of working on that, but it's teacher by teacher, and we kind of like meet, collaborate, and then go from there. It's all
Okay.
about inspiring and showing enthusiasm and doing more hands-on lab-based projects with a hook to it that makes it more tangible for the students, and continuing that learning process from there.
Yeah, that sounds great. So what's next for the engineering program? Do you plan to keep it on target? I mean, obviously you're stretched. I'm going to say stretched fairly thin. You got a lot going on. Is there room for a level three? Is there room within the science curriculum, within the budget to continue to expand and grow?
Yes. So I'm always on the weekends.
Maybe
I'm literally
1% better. Trying
yeah.
to be 1% better.
I'm always trying to find a way to get better because I'm never satisfied with the product that I currently am doing with my students. I'm like, I can always do a better job. So one example of my level 2 class is to not make it as where do you want to go, but like kind of try to build a little bit more framework. So I have one unit that I'm going to install. I'm hoping next year. It depends on funding. It's basically from a solar panel, and then how to size appropriately into a battery bank, and then how to wire appropriately so it could be used within the classroom. So I did get approval from my administration to do that. I'm going to be using a lot of Victron products, and then from there, we're going to have a solar panel. I don't know how. I found a bunch of different ways how to do it. There's this flexible solar panel that I could
Mhm.
tape to the window, so I'm not drilling any holes outside of the classroom,
Yeah,
which obviously is not as efficient, but it's still an educational tool.
right.
So we can gather electricity, charge a LiPo battery within the classroom, have an inverter, being able to use that with certain purposes. So if I want to all of the batteries for my RC airplanes, we can charge from solar at that point. So it becomes more of a learning point itself, because I think there there needs to be more electronics focused education going forward, because if you look at our world, look at even the cars that we drive, how many more sensors are in there than before, and there's
Sure.
just so much more technical things that are happening in our society today, that having that literacy within that realm I think is super important. So I definitely want to push more towards that, and I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to be really fun.
And you mentioned you teach a little automation robotics. What kind of equipment do you have there? And what would be your wish list?
So from 2010, I still have my original robots. They still work with Lego. So I have three different robotics kits, because I really believe that it's important that students know multiple programming languages. And the reason
Hmm.
why I believe that is because what you learn today, it might not be what you use 10 years from now.
Right.
So being able to program in multiple languages, I feel, is more important and appropriate. So we have one unit that does Python, we have one unit that does block coding, and we have one unit that does more HTML type of programming. So they kind of have the experience in all three realms. So within my level 1 class, we just do block programming, and in my level 2 class, we focus on the HTML type and Python programming. Um, so that's kind of how I kind of scaffolded it, so to speak, in layers, so they kind of understand more about each one. But that I'm a really believer of not being great at one platform, but understanding how to program in multiple platforms, because that's more transferable to the real world.
Right. Yeah, that is very true. If you get boxed in, so to speak, you really you can be excluded, as opposed to being more open. And it is interesting how you phrase that. We have an apprentice program that includes many hours learning at the hand of a journeyman, but it also includes related instruction, coursework, classroom work, or online learning. And the purpose of that related instruction is context and depth. So you are not like literally tied to this one task and this one thing, that you really understand your trade, that you really understand its depth. And I applaud you for that. Giving them that depth of understanding of it. So it's not just a task that they're doing, that it is in fact a trade that they understand, and that's, programmable logic controllers or whatever that might be.
Right. And then and then I could take that programming aspect even into the solar panel concept with
Sure.
Victron, because they could even program that to charge the batteries at a certain level, or have some sort of if then statements built into that whole process. So it's like that whole nother level of what I'm currently doing and how do I tie it into what I'd like to do in the future as well.
Yeah, that is exciting. In the few minutes that we have left, is there anything that I missed? Is there something you want listeners to really know about the program and the kids that are in it?
The big thing is that I like to focus my time on are my students and how excited they are about doing it and the things that they can accomplish. So we do have our own Twitter page, MHS Engineering and Robotics, and the Twitter handle is at MHS Engineering 1. I like to showcase what my students can do on there, and my district also picks it up as well. It's one of the things that I love to do is we try to do out of the box ideas, and then I'd like to show everyone that these kids can do anything they want to do. There's no boundaries, there's no walls. It's about just inspiring them, having fun, because you have to have fun, and if you want to do it again. So fun is a huge part of what we do.
Yeah, I will echo that. We do follow you, and we see those posts, and everyone seems to be having fun. That is
Yeah.
for sure to see. And the projects look fantastic, and really are very excited by your program and what you're doing. And hopefully you'll inspire some other folks to take it on. And I'm going to put this out there for you. I'm sure you'll say yes. But if there was a teacher that was interested in starting a program in their own high school, I'm sure you'd be more than happy to share your experience.
Absolutely. And what it is that it's not even a cut and paste from what I do, because
Sure.
what their student needs might be different than our student needs. So
Right.
it's all about, because I've listened to other podcasts in the past, and they always say it depends. So understanding how it depends is the true recipe for success. But I'd be more than willing to, collaborate and help in any way possible.
Thank you very much. So, Tom Fassell, science and engineering teacher at Marlboro High School. Thank you very much for being a part of the podcast today.
It was a great opportunity, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Manufacturing Matters, brought to you by the Council of Industry and sponsored by PKF O'Connor Davies, accountants and advisors who understand the unique challenges and opportunities in the manufacturing sector. We hope you gained valuable insights and inspiration from today's discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform.